Let's get right to it. I got my brother on the line.
All right.
Per request for you guys, and you wanted to get into the virtual world of NASCAR. And, of course, everybody knows my brother Chris has worked in NASCAR before, and he comes to us from Florida where they've locked the borders down, I see, as well. So you probably have some time to talk to us. Tell us what's going on in this NASCAR virtual racing that everybody's crazy about.
Well, it's good to be on and free to talk, at least, given what's going on down here and around the country. But no, it's an intriguing scenario that NASCAR has put out there with this virtual racing. They had their first race last weekend. In fact, it was the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway with no fans, of course. But, it was, I didn't see it personally, but certainly a lot of people did tune in to watch it. I believe it was 903,000 people actually tuned in to see it.
Jeez. So,
obviously there's an audience there that's starved for racing, and if you can't see it live or in person or on TV, well, I guess this is the next best thing, and it's as real as it's going to get, albeit drivers that are doing it from the comforts of their own home.
That's Chris Dirato talking about the NASCAR iRacing. And Chris, I'm curious too, where do you think the numbers will compare with the whole IndyCar iRacing coming up as well?
Well, of course, it all depends upon the level of competition that's going to be participating. I believe NASCAR had some of their marquee stars involved, including Dale Jr., who battled it out with Denny Hamlins for the win last weekend. So, as long as IndyCar has their marquee names, I think people will probably respond to that. But it's interesting. NASCAR kind of paved the way with this thing because not only is IndyCar getting involved with this, but Formula One and I believe IMSA and on the sports car racing side has done it as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if my former series that I was heavily involved with, the NHRA drag racing series, probably doesn't get involved in some shape or form with this. So, again, it's satisfying a hunger that a lot of race fans have right now, and including myself. And, I'll sure be tuning into Sunday's race, which will emanate, and I put that in quotation marks, from Texas Motor Speedway.
Chris, appreciate you joining us. And I saw a tweet from Denny Hamlin and the contraption that he has to do that race, and it begs the question for me: do these drivers? Is this something that they have typically done to almost help them learn the tracks and stuff like that, or is this something that they normally just do for fun?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, actually. In Hamlin's case and Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s case, they have these machines, simulators, as I would call them, are tens of thousands of dollars. In Hamlin's case, he probably uses it to stay sharp, and even when he's not at the track, he can mimic what he would feel and what he would experience if he was on the track in his real race car. In fact, I guess it was Chase Elliott or somebody, or maybe it was Clint Boyer, but one of the drivers indicated that these things are so real that you can actually, and I'm talking about the tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, you can actually feel the bumps in the track where they're actually felt at the real track. So that's how realistic these things are. But not all of them have the fancy equipment like Hamlin and Junior have. Some of them are just have a steering wheel and some gas and brake pedals and a stick shift, and they're looking at a big computer screen. So that they're not all formal and expensive. So some of these guys are doing it as they can afford it.
Hey, let me ask you, Chris, on the industry side. I think I read this somewhere earlier this week, and I don't know if you agree or not. As the racing industry, are they more apt to come back from this elongated, no fans in the stands, no tickets sold, than a lot of other pro sports?
Well, I mean, of course, they were suffering for a number of years leading up to this horrible situation. So that's a very interesting question because you have a lot of teams that are they're sidelined, they're idle right now. Guys have been laid off. So you wonder who's going to come back and to what degree they're going to come back in terms of team members and whatnot. But sponsors, of course, are locked in contractually. So they're gonna have to be involved to get their ROI. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, everybody's hurting right now economically, and the tickets to go to these races, they're not cheap. And add in the parking costs in some cases. Some tracks don't charge for parking. Add in the concessions, and that's an expensive outing to go to one of these races. Not to mention lodging, if you're going to be involved with that side of it. So, it will be interesting to follow. What kind of devastation this has done to not only the NASCAR series but motorsports in general. Formula One is renowned for being an affluent type of motorsports series, and it'll be interesting to see how they come back from this as well.
Hey, Chris, were you surprised to see the announcement today of the Indy 500 being pushed back until August?
No, not at all. You're talking about an event that traditionally has drawn 500,000 people. Obviously they're not going to be all looking at the the safe distancing, the social distancing scenario. So no, that was a smart move. And what's going to happen though, in terms of the racing calendar, a lot of these series that have canceled or postponed races, they're bound and determined to race at all of them, and the calendar is going to be bunched up. And I think in NASCAR's case, they're looking at some midweek races to try to make up with whatever they had to postpone due to the pandemic. So it'll be the calendar, the sports calendar in general, is going to be jam-packed over a short period of time leading up to the end of the year. I can tell you that.
Chris, obviously we know that because our radio station has a little segment from Texas Motor Speedway that the iRacing will be technically at Texas this weekend. What for those who may be interested in watching that this weekend? What is that track? How different is that maybe from Homestead or some of the other ones that they may see with iRacing down the road, and how much longer those are compared to some of the other ones down the series ahead?
Well, it's your typical, what I would call your cookie cutter track, about 1.5 miles, and high banks, and it's a technical track, but yet a high speed track. So for those that are interested, I believe it's a 1 o'clock Eastern time start on Fox and FS1. It'd be, if folks are interested in tuning in, that they'll actually have some coverage of that. So, but again, don't expect what you would see for real. Right. There's going to be, but they're going to simulate what would be a race, a typical race at Texas Motor Speedway. And I'm sure if Eddie Gossage, the renowned promoter down there, had his way, he'd find a way to build that up, even in a virtual reality mode. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he's trying to think of some creative thoughts right now, because he's just that way. But it'll be interesting to watch it. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to see the first one, but allegedly they're going to do this through the races that they postponed so far, which I believe total 6.
Hey,
and that'll include Bristol, which is the next one.
We've seen some pro athletes along the way in various sports donating monies here and there to take up the plight of those workers at a baseball field, at a basketball arena. And you mentioned some of the people who are out of work, now that the racing industry has been put on hold. Any drivers that you've heard maybe a little buzz about that maybe they're going to get in on that too?
Well, I think I have to say the motorsports world in general has always been very charitable and generous. Whether it's the the president of a track or the president of a sanctioning body. And drivers overall, a lot of them have foundations. It would not surprise me that to see as time goes on here, some of these drivers that are donating their time and money to help organizations within the within the Charlotte area specifically, which is where many of these teams are housed. So there are a lot of these counties up there. They're slowly trickling into North Carolina where there's these stay-at-home orders. So it kind of restrains them in a way. But drivers in general are charitable, and they have great hearts, and they understand that the fans are hurting, and they want to make sure those fans come back and sit in the seats and watch their races down the road.
Last thing before we cut you loose, I want to ask you, have you heard anything? I mean, every sport's got to think about this. We don't want to think about it as a fan base or as people who follow it, that, if this goes on and on and on, then whatever sport we're talking about may not take place during this calendar year and be pushed off. Is racing, you mentioned about the jammed up schedule, obviously it would have to be redone, but can racing redo, if you will, a season like this better than a lot of teams?
Well, it's a matter of whether they want to do that. And, NASCAR has made it clearly known that they want to race, they want to have every race, on their schedule. Including the All-Star race, which typically runs the weekend before the Coca-Cola 600 on Memorial Day weekend. So now, as time goes on, if we're all in this position 2 months from now, that they could be revisiting their thought process. But they're going to try, and again, I think a lot of it. Not only do they want to do it, but a lot of it has to do with the economics of it. There's a lot of moving parts, pardon the pun, between sponsors and teams, and some of these teams are barely hanging on as it is, and they may not be making the return to the series once they get going again. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider here, and I'm sure not only NASCAR but these other racing series are going to have to think about the prioritization type of approach.
Last thing, did you know Ogba was going to go to the Dolphins when you sent me that picture with you and Tara and Ogba and Vincent?
No, not at that time, but there was certainly a discussion to that.
You either knew or you didn't know. I mean, don't be giving this fence riding.
Come on, I don't let the cat out of the bag.
All right.
I can't say that.
I had to ask that for Jason because Jason wants to know all about Ogba. I showed him that picture. Jason's I guess he's still an Ogba fan, even though he's not with the Chiefs anymore, right, Jason?
Yeah. Again, I had the opportunity to cover him at Oklahoma State, and him. Obviously, you also had Vincent Taylor down there for a few years. So I'm sure for you, it's been nice to get some people down there to maybe talk about Tom a little bit at times.
Oh man.
Well, they don't talk very highly of him, so that's. Yeah. But no, it's great to have it. Honestly, as I tell Tom all the time, it's great to have an Oklahoma State connection down here. Of course. Lord knows when I'll see these people again, but we have Yves Bateau down here as the assistant director of player engagement, and he works for the Dolphins. So we have an Oklahoma State pipeline here in South Florida, which is terrific.
All right, bud. You got anything else you want to add? I know you're under the same, restrictions as everybody else in Florida, and closing borders and all that. So how you guys? That's a state that's got a lot of people in it. How are they handling it?
Well, and not only a state that has a lot of people in it, but the people that are most at risk, and you would be one of them if you were here. And I'm close to it. So those are the people you got to be concerned about, and we're trying to keep up our end of the bargain here, and stay away from people, and hopefully this thing will all blow over before too long. And we can all get back to living our normal lives.
We'll let you run here. Remy said hello. He's tired of you not coming up here, though. So,
well, give him my best. And guys, I hope everybody out in Stillwater stays safe. And rest assured, I'm thinking about everybody in my alma mater and my former town of residence. So everybody stay safe, and we'll get through it.
All right, bud. We'll catch up with you when this kind of evens out. Maybe we'll get another angle on the NASCAR thing. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, bud.
Appreciate it.
There he is,
There
the
you
one and only, telling us all about, and I thought he would be, but I guess he's trying to call it the way it is. I mean, I had read this story, and I'm paraphrasing whoever it was. I can't remember who wrote it, but they indicated, well, NASCAR's not like baseball. They're not, they can come back, the guy didn't say this, but literally they can come back next week and have 100,000 fans come out.
Easily.
But he didn't sound that way. Chris didn't have that same tone, do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, how could he, It's just at that point where, but yeah, exactly. They could have easily 100,000, easily. And he kind of hit it too, no one's going to be practicing that social distancing at those races. So, understandable. But he gave us a ton of really good information. That's he, mentioned where to watch it. And like you said, over 900,000 viewers for the NASCAR one.
Wow.
That's insane. And we mentioned that before you actually came on the show, was people, if they want their sports, I mean, they're going to get them however they can. And if it's the only way right now, then there goes your million viewers.
I guess. I was not one of the 900,000.
I don't think any of us were really, but we kind of learned a little bit more about it today.
Apparently, I got a text from my dad who he said he watched it, and he said it was amazing to watch. He said that he'll definitely watch again.